to Ranger in Depth. Today we will open our series on inputs with Blasting Gust. A shorthand of the video script will be available in the description that you can use as your study notes. Now, Blasting Gust is your primary CC, movement, damage pillar, your combo initiation, your evasion debuff, and it's your offense. For your sanity, I will rebind Q to any other key that is easy to reach with the rest of your fingers able to hit W, A, S, D, and A. I personally use an extra key on my mouse, and I have heard of Control as the most common alternative for people whose mice lack extra keys. It is quite comfortable. I've tested, though if you use Control for Q, then you will have to adjust what key you use to take out your mouse for mouse movement. Since mouse movement is so important, especially for Awakening Ranger, I would recommend that, since mice with extra keys are so common these days anyways, to just use an extra mouse key for Q. Now, having noted that, let's get into the ability itself. Blasting Gust has three main forms. First, it's Stationary Blasting Gust, UES or Ultimate Evasive Shot Blasting Gust, Pinpointing Gust. Stationary and Pinpointing Gust both flow into Bypassing Wind with Shift R and B. And UES Blasting Gust will flow into Bypassing Wind by queuing R and B when going sideways and backwards. Stationary and Pinpointing Gust both flow into PUBG via holding left mouse button, as does Tearing Shot, the level 56 Rabam, which shares the same animation as Stationary Blasting Gust. I'm not going to wait for the PUBG cooldown to show you the same exact thing with Pinpointing Gust because I want to quickly talk about the use of your 56 Rabams, especially Tearing Shot. If you take a look, if you fire Tearing Shot with your left mouse button, as is most commonly done, if you don't let go of left mouse immediately, you're going to accidentally cast PUBG. Now, you could simply just make sure you never accidentally hold the left mouse for too long, but what you can also do is to fire Tearing Shot by releasing Shift while holding Shift X. This way, you can not only hold Shift X to scout out what you want to hit, but you can also absolutely avoid accidentally casting PUBG, because the moment you let go of Shift, the skill will fire. That being done, let's get into Stationary. So that's the first form, and it's done simply by pressing Q and L and B. There's a super armor on the wind up when the skill is off cooldown. It is gone as soon as you fire. Some rangers make use of this, not a lot. As I've said before, this shares animation with Tearing Shot. Now, it also shares animation with in Awakening with C-Swap going backwards, but there's no SA on this version. But you can use backwards C-Swap from swords and also get the Bypassing Wind cancel, because the C-Swap shares the same animation as Stationary Blasting Gust. Now, Ultimate Evasive Shot or UES Blasting Gust is the most common cancel form of Blasting Gust, and it relies on Ultimate Evasive Shot. As you can see, when we skill this, you can't use the cancelled Evasive Shot. You can't use the cancelled Blasting Gust. Skill back on, and now you can. So yeah, have Ultimate Evasive Shot. Literally nothing in the kit is going to work without it. Now, there's a mistake that I see a lot of people make. It's UES Blasting Gust, which is this. They try to press forward and left mouse to fire UES Blasting Gust, and you either do a little sliding shot if you press W first, or you do an auto attack because you pressed left mouse first. This happens because UES Blasting Gust is actually just a cancel, and if you don't have something for it to cancel, then the game defaults to the next thing. It's usually an auto attack because you hit left mouse button, and then Ultimate Evasive Shot is going to cancel the auto attack in into Blasting Gust. You can avoid that by pressing Q before you start direction key and left mouse button. If you're an old ranger and you're used to the Blasting Gust before Succession was introduced, then this is just second nature to you, and you probably press Q because you're used to it. But you can also use F. This is almost animationless if you do it quickly enough. Use, Shift Q and cancel the stationary Will of the Wind. You can use Nature's Tremble. You can really use anything. But using Q to cancel Blasting Gust itself with Ultimate Evasive Shot seems to be the easiest thing you can do. And if that's too much, then you can always start your UES Blasting Gust cancels by going sideways in that form, because this will directly initiate UES Blasting Gust for you. Now, next thing we want to talk about is pinpointing Gust, Blasting Gust. It's the primary function of this is that this form of Blasting Gust hits very far without having to move. UES Blasting Gust also has a fair amount of range, but you will move during it, and it's not optimal for when you say stand on a wall top. This form of Blasting Gust shares the same animation as if you did it with Tearing Arrow, so TA Blasting Gust, or level 57 Rabams Fury Arrow, which if you hit Q during it, also gives you the pinpointing gust animation. For both of these forms, you'll just hit Q while in the stance of their respective skills, and all of these versions share the same bypassing with cancel. Lastly, there's actually there's one last form of pinpointing gust that you can use, which is what I call the sprinting gust. It involves you pressing W, Shift, then letting go of W and Shift, and while your character is still running, left click to do a little sliding shot and press Q to Blasting Gust. This is different from the sliding shot that you get when you're pressing just W, not sprinting, and tapping left mouse. This sliding shot, the only use for it is to activate Call from Sky, which is used sometimes when you transition from swords to bow in Awakening and you need to quickly get into super armor. You can see swap, tap left mouse button, spacebar to get into Call from Sky. Otherwise, this does not activate the sliding version of pinpointing gust. For that you have to be sprinting and let go. Lastly, there's actually a way you can kick cancel Blasting Gust if you so wish. It is called Pinpointing Gust 2. That's the name of the flow before the rework removed all the flows and put them into the skill itself. So the input is dash kick into Q, so dash kick, W, F, and Q. And as with all other forms of kick cancel, which if you're not familiar with it, please visit the Penetrating Wind video. So with all other forms of kick cancel, it can be done at range if something has been hit during the kick animation. And of course anything works, including shotgun, blasting gust, etc. Now we're going to look at Blasting Gust from Awakening. So the first thing you need to know is that you need the absolute tier of Blasting Gust to use Blasting Gust from Awakening, which I will call swords because you're holding swords. And the second thing is that the evasive shot is actually prioritized over Blasting Gust for inputs in Awakening. So if you use A, D, L, and B with moving shot locked as it should be, then your character will actually evasive shot before she uses Blasting Gust. So that means it's important to use the following cadence: Q, L, and B direction to use Blasting Gust in Awakening from bow. Otherwise, you will start with an evasive shot, and then the Blasting Gust skill will cancel the evasive shot. The second thing to know is that when you're in Awakening, if you use the Q, L, and B direction cadence that I just told you about in bow form, you lose your Wailing wind cooldown. Because Q is also the input for wailing wind, in order to avoid accidentally triggering wailing wind, we modify our input cadence to LMB direction Q. So LMB direction Q, D direction Q, LMB direction Q. See, we don't lose our wailing wind cooldown. And that's it. That covers what I wanted to talk about for Blasting Gust. In our next video, we are going to talk about bypassing wind. So see you there.